Hello everyone, DJ here. This week we're going to talk about a very confusing topic. So this is actually going to be broken into several pieces over the next couple of weeks to try to make things a little simpler. Excuse me. Alright, we are going to talk about the Integrated Disability Evaluation System, or as at least how we call it in the Army, IDES. And don't worry, the title of this episode, Beware the IDES of Medical Boards, is just a play on William Shakespeare. You shouldn't fear IDES, you should come to understand it. And that's what I hope to help you do over the next couple of weeks is take this confusing procedure and break it down into simple steps so that even people like me can understand it. All right. So first of all, and I will confess to a little insider knowledge here because I am currently going through this myself, so I can verify that a lot of the stuff I'm going to mention is actually happening. The Integrated Disability Evaluation System is essentially what you go through when you're determined to have medically limiting issues and they're not recoverable, or at least they haven't been over a long period of time, like 12 months or so. So if you've had medical problems and they just won't seem to go away and they're inhibiting you from being able to perform your military duties, then your unit through the chain of command can refer you to the evaluation system and see if there is a way to help you recover from this, or if you need to be retired or otherwise separated from service. Don't be afraid of this. In many cases, this actually leads to some good things for soldiers, so don't be afraid of it just because separation is an option. There's also the possibility of recovery or the possibility of retirement and continued service in other ways. So again, don't be afraid. And as I said, I'm also not going to try to explain all of this in one fell swoop. Otherwise, this would be a multi-hour long video, and I'd rather make this a couple of minutes and be assured that everything's understandable. So right now, let's just talk about a couple of things that happen when you start IDES. Again, IDES is Integrated Disability Evaluation System. Now, what in the world is that? Integrated what? Well, this is a joint evaluation of Department of Defense physicians and evaluation boards and the Department of Veterans Affairs evaluators. So, when disability ratings are computed for whatever injury or other malady you may have, both DoD and VA are making their own independent evaluations of your conditions based on what they see in your records. And they have different standards for evaluations. For example, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it's important to know. The VA will give a disability rating regardless of whether it inhibits you performing your military duties or not. For example, if you have, say, a back injury that doesn't inhibit you from doing a road march, but it causes you pain on a daily basis and you need to apply heat or massage, and I'm just making stuff up as far as this goes. Don't hold me to any real, rating schedule. I'm just trying to give an example. So you've got this disability, and it doesn't inhibit you from doing what you need to do. Well, the VA could assign a rating to that. Well, let's just make up another number. Let's say 20%. But the Physical Evaluation Board, we'll get to that in a moment, Physical Evaluation Board could decide this doesn't inhibit you performing your duties, no disability, and they could return you to duty. So each of these different agencies has its own standard based on what your duties are and whether you can perform them. So you'll often see a disability rating vary wildly. For example, just this morning, I had one individual who had a 90% VA rating and a 40% Army rating. Obviously, he was evaluated for the same conditions, but the military was more interested in what kept him from being able to perform his duties, not the overall disability rating. And that's quite common. So if this is something that you're experiencing, don't fret. This is quite normal. All right. So, as I said at the beginning, you have been dealing with your issues for a while, and they're just not healing. What can you do? Well, if you're found unfit for duty, and I'm talking from the reserve component standpoint here, if you're found to be unfit for duty, you should get a letter called a medical retention decision point letter, which will give you three options. It will first state that you've been found unfit for continued service and ask what you want to do. Your options are normally, let's say that you have a certain amount, let's say you have enough qualifying service to retire from the military. But this letter says, what do you want to do? You can separate completely, be transferred to the retired reserve, or you can request to go through IDES. So, what's best for you? That's something only you can determine. In many cases that I've seen, people have chosen to go through IDES. All right, what happens then? Because for so many folks, this is where things really start to get confusing. Well, let's break it down, see if we can make it a little more understandable. So first of all, you're referred to IDES through your medical folks in your chain of command. And any medical records that are already in your unit's possession should be given to the people managing your case, or in some cases you'll be required to hand carry them. Hand carry them where, you may ask? Well, how it's done for active and reserve components is essentially the same, but the techniques vary. The results are the same, but the techniques vary. So everyone is assigned what's called a Physical Evaluation Board Liaison Officer, or PEBLO. Everyone gets a PEBLO, and this person is your case manager for everything military regarding your case. There's another person called the Military Service Coordinator, who is the VA side of the house. You'll be in contact with both of these people on a regular basis. But anyway, we'll get to the MSC guy in a minute. Right now, we're talking about the PEBLO, Physical Evaluation Board Liaison Officer. This person is going to need copies of all, I say again, all of your medical records from all sources. Anything that you might be claiming, they'll need copies of the records to substantiate it. So this is the person to whom I mentioned earlier you give those records. And this is the person who should be giving you proper counsel on possible outcomes of this evaluation board and the benefits that you may have as a result. This is, from my experience, kind of hit or miss, but I'll get into bashing folks later on. That's not what I'm trying to do right now, although it can be fun. Alright, so you've met with your PEBLO. They're going to counsel you on the procedures involved in going through IDES, what you can expect as you go. They will generate a complete list of all of the issues that you're claiming that are related to your job performance. For example, if you're infantry, that back issue may have worsened, and now you can't do road marches as you need to do. If you're If you're an office worker, that might not matter so much, but everyone has a different specialty, so you have to be able to meet the requirements of that specialty. Your PEBLO will want to know all issues you have which could limit your performance of your military duty. After that's done, a lot of paperwork, you will then be referred to a military service coordinator from the VA. This person is not an employee of the Department of Defense. This is a VA employee. In fact, you could also say that the PEBLO is not associated with the actual conduct of the evaluation boards. The PEBLOs are employees of the military treatment facilities, but they are not employed by the Army Physical Disability Agency or the relevant copy in other branches of service. That's a lot so far, and I'm not even really into this. As far as the topic, I don't mean to say I'm bored, just I haven't even begun. So, have I confused everyone yet? I hope not. If so, press pause right now, maybe back this up and play it again. Sometimes repetition helps. But, alright, I'm going to assume you've done that now. If you needed it, we're going to dive back in. Excuse me. Alright, you've met with the PEBLO. Now you're going to meet the military service coordinator through the VA. This person will counsel you on the VA side of things, what they will do for you. And it actually turns out that most of the examinations will be conducted by the VA. They get the information first. They will also want a list of all of your problems, but not just the duty-related ones. They will want everything that could have been caused by or exacerbated by your military service. They want everything. And once that is done, the PEBLO and the coordinator, the service coordinator, will work together to schedule specialty and physician exams and any other service that might be needed to fully evaluate your conditions. So that is the research phase of IDES, the research and documentation phase. Now we're actually going into what's called the Medical Evaluation Board, or MEB. So, what is Medical Evaluation Board? Well, the title pretty much says it. You're actually being evaluated by physicians, by specialists, to determine the extent of your injuries and disabilities. And when I say injuries, that's a blanket term. It could also be TBI or PTSD that aren't obviously readily noticeable. So it could be mental conditions as well, not just physical. Alright, that could take a month or two actually to get all of these exams completed. And you are expected to make all of your appointments. If you miss appointments, that will be reported to your chain of command, so keep that in mind. And as we said earlier, this is an integrated or joint venture between DoD and the VA, so the results from your medical examinations will go to both your branch of service, your PEBLO, and to the VA for independent evaluation. After that is done, a group of officers, some of them are actual military officers or have prior service, and at least one of them is a physician. A group will convene to analyze your documentation and the results of your evaluations, and they will determine whether you are fit enough to return to duty or if you are unfit for duty and need to be referred to what is called the Physical Evaluation Board, or PEB. If you are referred to the PEB, then a lot more happens. If you are deemed fit, then obviously you go back to your unit and continue to serve. But what if you go to the PEB? So if you go to the Physical Evaluation Board, there are two versions. The most common one is called the Informal Physical Evaluation Board, and that consists of another panel examining your medical documentation, and based on the documents themselves, recommendations from chain of command, statements from you, etc., they will again determine whether you're fit for duty, although that's pretty much foregone, otherwise they wouldn't be looking at your stuff in the first place at this point. But the big thing they do is start to determine disability ratings. Again, this is independent of the VA. So the PEB is now looking at all of your issues and determining their own rating for each of your issues. I won't go into actually I will. I was going to say I won't go into what's called the combined rating, but that might actually help understand things. So, what is a combined rating? And what I'm about to describe is for both the military and the VA. This is how VA and military math, as far as disability, actually works. Did you ever wonder how someone can have a 50% disability, another 50% disability, and a 30% disability, and not have a 130% disability rating? Because you'll hear a lot of people who go to the VA say, yeah, I've got a 130% rating. Well, they're actually not doing the math properly. I may just have to throw this formula up on the screen, or for those of you who are listening on a podcast, you may have to hear this and then look at a little presentation I make or something. We'll see. But anyway, let's say you've got someone with three ratings, 50%, 50%, and 30%. Well, the branch of service, or the VA, will take the highest rating first. In this case, they're both the same. They'll take that 50% and apply it to your 100%, efficiency, your body, 100% body, and how much of your capability is left after they deduct 50%. Well, you've got 50% left. With me so far? All right. So then, they'll take the second 50% rating and apply it to how much of your capable body is left. In this case, you've got half of a capable body left. So, if you deduct 50% of the remaining half, you now have 25% of your overall body still capable of performing whatever. All right? That means that 75% of you is not capable. Keep that part in mind. So now we've got 25% of you that is still capable in some way of doing something, and we need to apply that remaining 30% disability rating. So 25 or 30% of 25, let's just, that would be 7.5. So take the 75% that we've got off to the side, add 7.5, and that equals 82.5% total. Round that to the nearest 10, we have 80% total disability rating, combined disability rating. Well, that might make more sense if I show some pictures, so look for a presentation that I got from a coworker. I'll post that as a nice little added bonus to help understand VA math. The scary thing is this actually makes sense, which is amazing since we're talking VA. Alright, so the PEB has met. They have determined disability ratings for all of your conditions, and they have also determined that one of two things is about to happen. If your combined disability rating is less than 30%, they're going to either offer you a severance package, or if you have sufficient service for retirement, they'll retire you. If you have a 30% or higher combined rating, you'll be immediately medically retired. And even for reserve components, I mean immediate. you're not waiting until age 60 for pay and benefits. All of that starts right away as if you were an active component retiree. And in many cases, it actually turns out that the rate of pay is higher than what the reservist would have had based on his retirement points. So quite a surprise there for a lot of people. Now, do you remember something I said last week about people being afraid that they had lost everything because of medical disqualification? What if you did have a combined rating of 20%, let's say? Well, I just said you needed a minimum of 30 to be medically retired, but your combined rating was 20. What now? Well, like I said last week, if you have at least 15 qualifying years as a reservist or combined service, but as a reservist right now, then you can still be issued a notice of eligibility and be transferred to the retired reserve. You haven't lost anything. And that's why I said last week, if you have at least 15 years, don't be afraid. Go ahead and present your medical issues to your unit and either get fixed or let us do the right thing and retire you so you don't get hurt further. And even if you have less than those 15 years, the right thing to do is either get fixed or avoid getting hurt further by the ardors of military service. So do the right thing for yourself either way. I know I'm bouncing all over the place with my dialogue here. I'm not using a script, just a couple of notes on the screen, so forgive me. Alright, so the PEB has said you have a disability rating of, let's just say for giggles, 50%, and you're going to be retired. And as I mentioned before, the PEB is only interested in disabilities that limit you from performing your military duty. They're not, as one myth has constantly said, worried about your deployability. Now, that might play a factor. For example, again, if you're infantry, that's kind of a big deal. If you're human resources guy, not so much. Well, you've got your rating, and the board says you're going to be retired because of this rating, but you don't necessarily agree with the findings. You do have a right to an appeal. You do have the right to counsel. In fact, there's a whole section of military lawyers whose specialty is assisting soldiers who are going through these sorts of procedures. So don't think that you've been left out in the cold without any rights or recourse because of this. You do have all sorts of options. You just need to know about them. And that's why I'm mentioning it, of course. All right, so how long does all of this actually take? Well, I've seen a wide range. I've seen people start this and it goes for 5 or 6 months, and I have seen others take 3 years. But the goal of IDES, of the Disability Evaluation System, is to go from start to finish for a reservist 305 days. And for an active component soldier, 295 days. So either way, about 10 months is the goal. That could be longer or shorter based on the conditions, the documentation, the exams needed, etc. So the goal is 10 months. The actuality remains to be seen. Everyone's different. And that is where we're actually going to leave off. Well, no, I will mention one other thing. There's another item that is called LDES, or Legacy Disability Evaluation System. This is a much simplified, well, if you want to call it that, a much simplified evaluation system in which only the Veterans Administration, the Department of Veterans Affairs, is conducting any sort of evaluation. It is not looking to do any sort of military disability or military retirement. So it takes a lot less time, but in my opinion, it also could lead to far fewer benefits for you if you are to be separated. But some people think this is the best way to go, and that's their choice. I'm going to post some information in the notes for this episode comparing IDES and LDES, so if you want to go into more detail, you're welcome to look at that. And even though this has gone on for 25 minutes so far, I have been greatly simplifying things just for easy understandability, if that's even a word. I'm posting a lot of resources in this episode, so please check the description, the show notes, the links to that information. There's a lot that you need to know, and I'm glossing over a great deal of it just for the sake of time. So for true understanding, please take a look at those resources and get yourself informed so that if you need to go through this yourself, you have a good idea of what to expect. And that is where I'm going to leave off for today. Next week, I will continue further in this medical retirement series. I'll actually be down at Fort Knox next week going through some examinations of my own. But there'll be plenty of time for me to talk to you and let you know the next step, what happens after the physical evaluation boards are done. So once again, and as always, thank you for being part of this audience. I greatly appreciate your viewing these videos. If you think these videos are useful, or again for the podcast, if this podcast is useful for other people, please forward the links to them so that they can learn from this as well. If you are on YouTube and you like this video, please hit like and subscribe so that this channel can grow. Always, I am open for questions and comments on the podcast, comments on YouTube, or on the articles I write. I welcome comments for any of those, questions, comments, claims, whatever. I like the communication, and it actually helps me better plan for future episodes and just to know what you guys are thinking. So again, please communicate as much as you can. Hit like, hit subscribe, spread the word about this channel, about this podcast, about my website. Let's get this information in people's heads so they can make the best decisions for themselves. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here today, naturally, and as always, a heartfelt thank you for your service. Have a great day. Don't leave yet. For those of you who are listening to the podcast or may not have caught the caption that I put up on the video, I made a mistake in that last video. When I mentioned the Legacy Disability Evaluation System, or LDES, I said that only the VA was part of the evaluation. That was incorrect. What actually happens is you go through the same military evaluation as before with IDES, but the VA is left out, not military. So keep that in mind. I just wanted to make sure you have the right information. This does often still lead to a faster evaluation, but as I said earlier, some benefits that you may have earned are left out. So keep that in mind. The LDES leaves out the VA side of things, not the military side. Just want to be clear and have my mistakes up front. So thank you. As always, have a great day.